No.
Okay.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are, and welcome to NerdTube. We're talking Dark Side of the Ring, Season 3, Episode 4, The Collision in Korea. I'm here with a whole bunch of people, some new, some old. First of all, let me introduce you, Kim Jong Shredder. How you doing, mate?
Glad to be here. Thanks very much, Sam.
You're welcome. Cousin Cheeto, how you doing?
Excited to talk about WCW.
Yeah. And Jericho, how you doing?
I'm fantastic.
We're safe from copyright infringements, yeah?
Yes.
Very
Yes,
good.
I'm
Okie dokie. And we have Mr. Soprano in the chat. So, before we start doing a breakdown of this episode, as I usually do, I just want to say that when I watched this episode, I was fucking laughing my ass off. This was without a doubt the most funniest episode of Dark Side of the Ring I have ever seen. And what made this episode so unique for me was that, unlike previous episodes where we've seen the downfall of a previous wrestler, this is pretty much like an episode of a television show or a film about a bunch of wrestlers going to these big fucking steroid beefed up fuckers going to another part of the world where where everything's lost in translation and there's a culture clash beyond belief, and having to survive these 4 days so they can get the fuck out of there and live to tell the tale, which they did end up doing, which is why this episode was so fucking funny for me. I'm going to start with you, Shredder. Just before we start going into this episode in detail, how did you find this episode?
I found it entertaining, but there were some inaccuracies which I couldn't help but noticing. I have seen a lot about this in the past. I've got a copy of Eric Bischoff's book somewhere, and he did go into detail about this. Ric Flair's also gone into detail in the past. He was one of the big names that was unfortunately missing from this. Him and both the Steiner brothers. They would have been fantastic interviews for this show.
Yeah, for
Unfortunately,
sure.
they couldn't get them. Again, there was a few inaccuracies about them. Also, just before we go any further, last week, Sam, when we did the Nick Gage episode, you mentioned New Jack, and he passed away the very next day. So if you can, please try and avoid any mention of Vince Russo or Dave Meltzer in this edition.
Yes, and by the way, Vince Russo has been mentioned several times in previous episodes as well. Let's not forget him, like New Jack was.
Vince Russo's definitely been mentioned.
Yeah, and as well as Dave. You know, I think Vince Russo's actually been not only mentioned, but he's been involved in the interviews in previous episodes of Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, but keep mentioning him just in case. You know, I hope there's a curse of some kind on this broadcast.
Well, anyway, I guess, you know, even though we don't believe in that sort of shit, but yeah, let's just fucking give it a shot. All right, so as you were saying, anything further to say before I pass it on?
We'll get into the inaccuracies of it later, but as I said, overall it was entertaining, but there were a lot of inaccuracies, things that were left out, some facts that were omitted, and unfortunately, as I said, 3 of the really crucial big names who they should have got interviews from were missing. But otherwise, it was a good show.
Jericho.
Yes. I mean, this was a really interesting episode to me, honestly. I don't know if I felt like it was like the funniest episode, like you were saying, but I mean, just all the, you know, I mean, obviously with North Korea being the Hermit Kingdom, you know, with all of just the shit, basically. I mean, for lack of a better word, I mean, call it hurdle. I mean, just good God, that was just, yeah, it was way too much. It wasn't worth it, and so I just felt bad for everybody involved, really, including the North Koreans.
Okay.
I feel like they had it, from what I saw, it looked like at least towards the end of the night they had a good night, because then they finally realized what the hell was going on.
Yeah, by then the show was over. But Cousin Cheat, overall, what did you think of this episode?
Tuco Scorpio's a crazy motherfucker. Ric Flair is a pussy, and and Hawk's fucking. Just, I don't even want to get into Hawk. Who else was on this one? Eric Bischoff is just a condescending asshole.
Scott Norton.
Scott Norton's stupid. Like, let's be real. Like, you're going into North Korea. How do you not know what kind of... I mean, maybe back in the 90s it wasn't well known. I was, like, in first grade, I think, in 94. So maybe the world did not know what was going on in North Korea back then. And I know the internet wasn't a thing. So as well, it was a thing, but it wasn't like as much. So maybe they didn't know what they were getting into. And I will acknowledge my ignorance in that. But did he not realize he's going into a communist state? And then like
I mean, it's easier said than done, you know. Like they had no idea at all what they were getting themselves into.
And to add on to that, I mean, I think it's a lot easier, you know, what is this, 25 years on, 26 years on, to understand like what would go on in North Korea. You know, you have video and stuff now. This was 1995. I don't think I mean, you know, it's a communist country and it's going to be underdeveloped and stuff. I don't think they understood the scrutiny that they were going to be under. I mean, that is, let me put it, I would not put myself under that. I would never do that, ever.
You're itching to say something.
In defense of Scott Norton, I will say that he was taking the majority of his bookings at the time from Inoki and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So you can't exactly say no to your boss when you're making that much money off of him.
No. Yeah. I know that, but like he's just like even when he was explaining it 25 years later, he's like, I didn't know what was going on. I was, you know, yada yada. Like he was admitting that like he had no idea what was going on. He couldn't talk bad about North Korea on the phone, and he's like, "You're listening to my phone." It's a militaristic communist state. Like, of course they're tapping your phone.
But a lot of people didn't know exactly.
I can understand his naivety
to that extent. Yeah,
okay, and that's what I'm saying. If maybe they didn't know, I will acknowledge that. But I'm just saying, like,
I don't think anybody would intentionally. I mean, because even he said, like, once he realized, he's like, "Oh, I get it." He's like, "I'm not gonna say anything bad about North Korea now." Like, in one point that stood out to me was he was saying, like, every person in that room, they had a look on their face like they would just kill me and not even care. And it's like once they realize that, he's gonna toe the line. But like you said, I don't think they realized what they were in.
So. This episode begins with Eric Bischoff initially coming to terms with the wrestling industry as a commentator and looking around and knowing all the shenanigans that goes on. So he felt he was able to take the product in a different position when he finally ended up owning the business. And he then reconnected with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he was trading wrestlers between his company and theirs. So Japanese wrestlers like legends like Jushin Thunder Liger was coming in, and then they were sending people like the Steiners over there and stuff. So they had a good relationship, and he got to know Antonio Inoki, who would be a major player in all of this through that time. So Antonio Inoki, what we were told by people like Eric Bischoff and Tuco Scopio, is that this guy was like the Vince McMahon, the Hulk Hogan of Japanese pro wrestling. Did you guys, before I continue further on with this, how well do you guys know Antonio Inoki? I'll start with you, Shred, as you our main wrestling guy.
Right, I know a little bit about him. There were two really big promoters in Japan at the time. One of them was Antonio Inoki. The other one was Giant Baba. Giant Baba owned All Japan Pro Wrestling, and Inoki was the head of New Japan. Now, with Antonio Inoki, I felt that the interview, they were a bit too generous towards him. Now, I understand it's great getting a legend like Antonio Inoki to do an interview, but at the time, this was not something that was completely benevolent. It wasn't completely all about a peace mission to North Korea. This was an election ploy by Antonio Inoki. Antonio Inoki had been elected to the House of Councillors in 1989. They have elections every 6 years. He was due up for re-election in 1995. But by 94, Inoki's political career was pretty much over. Well, at least for the time being, because there had been accusations of multiple scandals. I think tax evasion was one of them, embezzlement was another, and there was also rumored links to the Yakuza. I'd just like to point out that much like Vince McMahon and all the stuff that he's been accused of, even things like the steroid trials, none of it ever stuck with Inoki. But it was enough to basically get him removed from office in 1995. He lost the election. But the fact that none of this was covered, none of this was brought up, and it was all about portraying Antonio Inoki as doing this completely as a benevolent peace mission, that I did kind of take issue with. I wish they had maybe spoken to somebody from the Japanese press at the time who would have been covering this and found out what the opinion was of the people of Japan.
Okay, cousin Cheeto, you know anything about Inoki?
I mean, no, not at all. I think I've seen one, maybe two of his matches, maybe in WCW, if he even, maybe in like nine. I mean, is this guy? This guy's a wrestler, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Inoki
yeah.
was a wrestler, yes.
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
so. I might have seen one or two of his matches. I think he may have done some stuff in WCW, which there was a lot of cross promotion, as admitted in this documentary. So, but I just don't remember. Like, I mean, I could probably. I might have seen one or two of his matches.
Inoki's most famous bout, I don't think he ever did compete for WCW. I think this was the only time that he personally ever worked with them. But his most famous contest was the, I'll say it's a freak show bout he had against Muhammad Ali, which a lot of people wrongly attribute as being the first ever MMA contest, pro wrestler versus a boxer.
Yeah,
because Inoki legitimately kicked the shit out of Ali's legs.
Yeah,
because he refused to stand up and actually fight him.
Okay,
but this was the kind of thing Inoki was known for. He had done various other big cross-promotional events. This one was, I think, the Ali event. I think was done in conjunction with the WWF, because if I remember correctly, I think Andre the Giant had a worked fight with Chuck Wepner, the guy who inspired the Rocky movie.
Okay, so yeah, it kind of makes sense. But I was thinking that when I saw Inoki versus Ali, I immediately was thinking Rocky 3. Jericho, any knowledge on Inoki yourself before we continue?
He was born in '94.
Yeah, I was born in '96. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, exactly. I wasn't even alive during this event.
Yeah,
but
I know, but do you?
I know of Inoki. Yes. I know more of his prestige and more of his post ring career. I don't really know much of his in ring career. I definitely know about like Shredder was saying with the matches with Ali, and I know the significance they had, like he was saying, with MMA and such. But I really don't. I mean, I don't know much about him. I know that he's a very well respected and big figure in Japan, and like Shredder said, like he had a political career, as a lot of Japanese, at least mainstream Japanese wrestlers do. And yeah, I mean that's about that.
Okay, well, now Inoki, he's got like quite close ties with North Korea, and he goes there quite often. And he just briefly suggested about doing a wrestling event, and apparently this got overheard. And next thing you know, they're snapping their fingers, saying, "Yeah, next year we want a fucking wrestling show." And so from there, he speaks to Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff, he's a younger man then. He's got massive ambitions, to host something really big. And the idea of going to North Korea just sounds just too good to be true. So he then takes it on board. He first of all wants to get a big star, speaks to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan says, "No way, brother," and shuts the door on him. So then he goes to the next particular person, and this person is an all-round technician as well as a superstar, and Ric Flair. And on top of that, as well as having like a really big name wrestler, they also had Muhammad Ali in there too. And there was a great moment in the airport in Japan before they shoot off to North Korea. They see Muhammad Ali there, as well as Inoki, and it just gave them a little bit of relief and a bit of hope that this can't be that bad. I mean, we got fucking Muhammad Ali, for Christ's sake, one of the most famous men in the world. At that particular point, when the Parkinson's was kicking in, he was still being like an ambassador. So this was his role. This is the sort of shit he lived for at this particular stage in his life. Mm-hmm. They thought they were in good hands, and that wasn't the case. And then they go on that goddamn aeroplane, and it's like from and the aeroplane has come from North Korea because, as Eric Bischoff said, there wasn't any Delta flights to bloody North Korea. No. They had to wait for the bloody plane from North Korea to arrive to Japan, then to take him back to North Korea, and that was like some plane from the 1940s. All of this from up to this particular moment, what were you guys thinking? Muhammad Ali coming into the scene, these guys being a bit concerned, Inoki being, intertwined with the North Koreans. Jericho, I'll start with you, mate.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was kind of like how we talked about earlier, how just like how different it is, because you can excuse me, you can more you can go to North Korea now as a tourist, as an American. You can go there. I mean, obviously, it's not recommended. It's not the safest thing, but people have done it. It's there's like an industry or whatever of it. Like, but back then, I mean, this was like you're saying, like taking planes from the 40s. Ric Flair's kissing the ground when he gets back because he's so shook by the experience.
Because he's a pussy.
And I mean, it's just it really is. It's just remarkable. My biggest takeaway when you said airport, I thought you were going to talk about the moment when they had in North Korea when they walk into the airport. Yeah. Well, I mean, since I'm already going ahead, they walk into the airport in North Korea, and was it Scott Norton is reminiscing about it, and he says we walk in and there's dust everywhere. He's like, there's dust, like he obviously exaggerates, but he's like, it's this thick. Like, he's like, no one has stepped in these rooms for obviously years. And it just, that would just be such a culture shock that I would be anxious. I would be paranoid. I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, the fact that when they got to the airport in North Korea and then like everything's dusty just goes to show they don't even use any of those facilities at all. Mm-hmm. Like the plane hasn't been updated for like 50 years.
Yeah, it's the 90s. I mean, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, and so it was a very surreal moment for them. And sorry, let me pass it on. Cousin Chio. No, you're on mute, mate. You're on mute.
Mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a culture shock. I mean, walking into this airport, there being like, like just dust this thick, like, I mean, look, I actually like Scott Norton as a wrestler, but after watching this, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this guy's kind of dumb.
I think you're really doing a disservice.
I got that with a lot of.
You're really doing a disservice.
I'm not gonna lie though. I'm not. I got that from a lot of these guys. I mean, Too Cold Scorpio. That guy's a lunatic. I mean,
I'm not doubting that.
I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Anyway, so, but yeah, I mean, this would be I would be walking in there going, that's the moment what I would be like, oh shit. Like, I wouldn't wait until I'm in a room with two guards and a guy pointing a finger at me saying, don't say bad about North Korea. I would be, at that point, I'd be like, oh God, this is the beginning of a Resident Evil game.
I would have thought that the moment I got on that aeroplane personally.
I mean, there's been other instances around the world where wrestlers have gone and things have gone horribly, horribly south due to political issues. Saudi Arabia immediately springs to mind. I don't know if any of you remember hearing the story a few years back about Luke Gallows and which one of the greasers was he? Cliff Compton getting held up in Uganda because of
God,
the great power Uti owed a lot of money to the hotel that they were staying in. So they wouldn't allow them to go and leave the country. The hotel was holding on to these guys' passports.
Shit.
The hotel.
This stuff has happened a lot in around the world where there's been political issues or issues regarding promoters screwing over hotels or arenas with foreign talent.
And what you end up seeing in this episode as well is, what you mentioned, it was what happened recently, is that unfortunately the wrestlers end up being pawns in this. And it's a real shame, and so that's why I have no issues with Scott Norton and getting upset. I mean, this is a fucking terrible situation he's in, and he shouldn't have been in it in the first place. There was a moment when, before they got to their hotels, they were then having to go to a memorial where they laid down these wreaths for their dear leader who died a year ago, which was just a propaganda piece as well, which was typical North Korea from what I've seen of them do.
Oh, there was a lot of that. There's a bit later on that wasn't covered in this episode that I'll get to, but yeah, there was a lot of propaganda surrounding this.
I'm surprised Ric Flair didn't give out a nice little woo when he put down the bouquet of flowers.
I will mention something involving Ric Flair later in propaganda, but
the wrestlers are in their hotel rooms now, and they're trying to pass the time, and they're surrounded by chaperones and military personnel following their every fucking move. The only sort of private time they have is in their own hotel rooms. And, like even things like maybe going across the hall to see one of your friends just seems weird and hard and difficult to do. But Scott Norton says, fuck it. And he goes to see Hawk. And then they bump into the Steiner brothers and stuff. And then they go around the hotel and they find a pool table. Yeah. It takes them 2 hours to get clearance so they can get some fucking pool balls.
2 hours for some fucking billiards.
And it's not even their own pool balls. It's the hotel.
No, it's not like they're having to like check for explosives. They literally took 2 hours to go through the bureaucratic goddamn nightmare, I guess, of what it is for this North Korean hotel.
Well, North Korea, as far as they were concerned, the people in North Korea viewed these people as white devils.
Yeah,
they viewed the Americans as devils. They viewed the Japanese as devils. They were taught to hate these people, so of course they're not going to make things easy.
Actually, just to go back a few steps, when they landed in North Korea, Eric Bischoff chaperone said that he was the 7th American to arrive in North Korea who hasn't been shot down or something or other, which was or killed in some capacity. Like who hasn't come onto their land illegally, basically. So they haven't been shot out of the sky or come on their land illegally. So that was it. That put a reality check into Bischoff as well, and he just came into the fucking country. But they're playing billiards finally, and then Scott Norton takes a shot, and the cue ball goes bouncing off the table. And just shit.
What? I mean, I'm sorry. What? Once again, it just absolutely buries the level of let's say street smarts of Scott Norton.
No, but this is ridiculous. Even for a communist country, for people to lose their shit over this, I can't imagine in Cuba or in Russia, when Russia was communist, if somebody took a shot in a game of pool and the pool ball came off the table, that everybody would want to take those people in. I mean,
I understand, but I don't understand after waiting for 2 hours to play pool. And knowing the situation that you're in, you're then going to take the game of pool so seriously that you hit the ball. You know what I mean? Like if I'm playing pool and it's been that long and I'm in that situation, I'm taking the fucking tiniest strokes in the fucking faintest of touches.
No, but he did say that after a couple of hours of playing, that happened. So they might have just gotten into
it might have come. Okay, I didn't realize it was coming. I didn't realize that they had let him play that long. I thought this was like a shorter thing. Okay.
Yeah. 2 hours just to wait for the goddamn balls to arrive, and then 2 hours after 2 hours of playing,
put an 8-hour shift.
I love the way Scott Norton was talking, I'm going to knock this little fucker out.
That's another thing. If he was actually thinking that back then, it's like, dude, that's his military personnel. How dumb are you?
Once again, he ended up getting the reality check, and we'll get to that in a second. But we then cut to Bischoff now, and he's doing what he does every morning. He goes for a jog,
Bishop, now Scott Norton, I will give the benefit of the doubt. Eric Bischoff, this was a was a dumbass moment right here.
He goes for his innocent jog. And as he starts, and it's dark as anything, but I'm not sure if you know much about North Korea. They've got no street lights. They've got no fucking street lights. When you look at pictures of the Earth from outer space, you see all these little lights. That's all lights coming from those countries. You look at North Korea, it's fucking black at night, man. Black, no fucking lights at all. So he's just jogging in the dark. Sun starts coming up, people start coming out and shit like that. And then they see this white man in a fucking pink shell suit jogging around, and they're all shitting themselves. Children are coming out screaming and shit like that. It's like he's like a fucking walking kaizu. He's like a little kaizu running around North Korea.
Well, again, as I said, these guys were painted as white devils.
And the critical element of this, and the reason why I blame Eric Bischoff for this, is it doesn't even pop into his mind that he should give his attaché the the clearance of telling him like, hey, I'm going to go out for this jog. He just leaves the hotel and goes out for a jog in the middle of North Korea.
I think you have to make these sort of mistakes at least once for you to realize. And it seems like a jog is so innocent. You know what I mean?
Zam,
yeah.
Zam, I have never been to North Korea, and I know not to go out and take a innocent jog out of
you know now. You know you're aware now.
But what I will say is like he was Eric Bischoff. Like he was one of the top people. He was probably like negotiating and scheduling the trip and talking with these officials. You would imagine at that point he would realize the type of situation. Like a regular wrestler, okay, I can understand them not getting the memo or not getting the context of the situation. The top executive on the trip, that he should know the context of the situation.
It depends. I think the big the top dog negotiating all of this was Inoki. So I think everything would have been run past him rather than Bischoff.
Okay. As a big player, major player, you know what I mean?
Well, this is the thing that I did also know, and this is where I can appreciate Bischoff, because he was more worried about his chaperone than himself, because that woman would have got killed. If for some reason, something. If Eric Bischoff overstepped the line even further, she would have got killed for it. So you can understand her paranoia at the time. It just goes to show how fucked up that country is. Anything further to say on Eric Bischoff's jogging, Cousin Cheeto? Anyone? All right. So let's go on to Too Cold Scorpio, aka Bossman's favorite wrestler, and
aka a fucking insane person.
This is funny because he regarding the situation with Hawk, it stems initially from him having a grudge with Ric Flair, because they had some beef with each other several years ago, like 8 years ago. I don't want to get into too much detail on what the beef was, but it was an issue, and it was burning inside still in Too Cold after all these years. And whilst Ric Flair was in Korea, his running buddy was Hawk. So Hawk was going to join Ric Flair when Ric Flair was asking for somebody to join him, and then Too Cold Scorpio intervened by saying, I can't remember what he said word for word. Do you guys remember?
He said, "Let him ride by. He's a pussy. Let him ride by himself." Something to that extent.
Something like that. And then, I think Hawk was saying, "What the fuck?" Responding, and then all of a sudden,
he said, "What the fuck did you say?" And then Too Cold Scorpio doubles down.
His aggravation, it goes towards Hawk after that, and then Hawk gets offended by that, and then they start having a ruck in the bus, which is taking them where? Where's this bus taking them? I forget where it's taking them. Is it to the wrestling?
I believe that this was another cultural for Korea to respect.
Yeah, I don't think we
were the propaganda.
Yeah. I think it was like a burial site or something.
Hey, Adrian Tate, we're good, man. I hope you've been watching Darkside of the Ring, my friend. It's a really good wrestling show.
It's a fantastic show.
You can find it on YouTube
all 3 seasons
as well. We
have some reviews here on our channel too.
Yep.
Yeah, many.
Doing, mate.
Yes, we do.
I have had a lot of people in shoot interviews say that Scorpio is actually one of legitimately the toughest guys in the business.
Or they're afraid that he'll shiv them if they say otherwise.
Yeah, I don't doubt the man's. Some people perceive it as toughness. I'll perceive it as idiocy. I don't know. I don't perceive that as tough, but I get what you're saying. I just think the guy is. The guy is mentally gone. You could just tell by the way he was. At least to me, you could tell by the way he was. Remembering the scenarios and just embellishing everything, and really just.
Because guys don't embellish anything.
It could very well be because of the career he's had that he has had multiple shots to the head. I can't say for certain. He also as far as I'm aware, he also did partake in some of the drug scene as well.
And that's what I was going to say. I don't know his background. I don't know any potential or accused, drug abuse. I don't know how many or how rough he was as far as head injuries and stuff. I don't know that. Just as far as what I took away from this interview and the way that they portrayed him in this interview is, he was off the cuff is about the best way I could put it.
the beef with Ric Flair, I think, was, if I remember correctly from some previous interviews, it was due to the way he was booked in WCW and also the perception of racism towards him as well.
Yeah.
Which I can see with Flair. I feel like earlier in his career, I think there were multiple instances of that. So,
yeah, I mean, he does look like a grand wizard with that fucking hair. Anyway, so anyway,
hit it out of the park. They have great.
So we're gonna get back to Edward Norton, Scott Norton. By the way, I love Scott
Edward
Norton. I love Scott Norton. I'm glad this show made me remember him again, because when I was watching WCW, he was my favorite.
He was one of my favorites when he was with Buff Bagwell. That was
Vicious and Delicious.
Jesus. Now y'all see, this is why young people can't respect WCW, or at least people who didn't grow up watching WCW, because those are the names that you pull out, like fucking Buff Bagwell.
Listen,
Scott Norton. I've never heard of Scott Norton in my life until about 2 hours ago.
He's one of these big men who's got more to him than meets the eye, which is what I liked about him.
Vicious and Delicious was actually quite an underrated tag team.
What, Buff and Norton?
Buff and Norton, Vicious
and
Delicious.
I love that tag team. I always loved watching that tag team. They were great.
It was just unfortunate they were always second fiddle to the Outsiders.
I mean, now if we're talking
in the NWO,
hold on. I'm sorry. Now, if we're talking about pussies, I mean, Buff Bagwell is on the fucking Mount Rushmore of pussies.
I mean,
he's
you're
selling
not
himself for pussies right now. But anyway, look, let's just get back onto track here, fellas. So, Scott Norton rings his wife, and he's basically trying to explain to his wife how fucked up things are in North Korea. Now, because he's a wrestler and he's on the road, his wife pretty much thinks that he's partying all the time and shit like that. You know what I mean? And his phone gets cut off because he's talking about how fucking terrible North Korea is. And then next thing you know, a North Korean man military man comes to his door. He speaks English, then takes him away to an interrogation room. And then they start fucking giving it to him big time. And this is where the reality check comes in now with Scott Norton, because he realizes, I better fucking comply here because I'm going to get killed. And all it was because he talked shit about North Korea, and that put him in that particular predicament.
And just to interject, I don't even think it was really he was talking shit. It was just like an offhand comment, like, basically to his wife saying, like, you don't understand, I mean, just saying, like, it wouldn't even be something that you and I or anybody in the audience would really perceive as an insult to the country, really, just as like somebody being frustrated with like the environment they're in. But these people take it so seriously. And then the only other thing I was going to say is that that is another moment where if I didn't understand like what situation I was in, as soon as somebody starts talking full, like fluent, correct, no broken English to me, oh God, I know I'm in fucking trouble.
No, he actually did say that the guy spoke good English. I do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I'm meeting someone because like usually when you meet people like that, they're not going to speak the best English. They'll obviously be able to communicate, but they won't be like fluent.
Yeah.
If I get pounding on my door, somebody talking to me in fluent English, like no break, no nothing. Oh man, that would scare the shit out of me.
The DPRK takes every perceived insult seriously.
Oh yeah.
There's a tag team in the UK independent scene. I don't know if you maybe heard of them, Sam. They're called the Geezos.
Okay.
Right. One half of them is a professional barber. He runs a hair salon, and as a joke, he put up a picture of Kim Jong-un and the caption "Bad Hair Day." And he was I think he was offering like free haircuts to anybody who wanted the Kim Jong-un.
Oh yeah.
He got a visit from the North Korean embassy.
Oh,
they took that as a serious insult.
And he was in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, luckily he's in the UK. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, what could they do to you at that point? I mean, I would assume nothing, but scare the daylights out of you, I'm sure.
So, the lads now are doing some more of this propaganda shit, and they go to a temple and with Muhammad Ali, who's honestly not been mentioned much in this regarding what he went through as well. And there's a real inspirational moment here, a moment which I would have loved to have seen recorded, but both Norton and Scorpio mentioned this, that he takes his jacket off, and next I mean, he's going through Parkinson's at this stage of his life, and he takes his jacket off, and he runs up the stairs. He's doing shadow boxing, he's doing the Ali shuffle and stuff like that. I mean, to go through all of that shit just to see that, one of the most iconic people of all time, he will be remembered forever.
Especially that century,
yeah. It's it must have been quite a remarkable moment at that particular time. But from there, we're back to Too Cold Scorpio. He wants to bury the hatchet with Hawk. This is after seeing all this amazing shit with fucking Ali. And he goes up to Hawk and tries to bury the hatchet.
I know, he wants to bury the shiv in it.
You ruined my joke, for fuck's sake, man. Yeah. Anyway,
I was wondering why he got so close to the mic. He was on edge for that.
So Hawk takes a swing at Scorpio, and like Hawk is still fucked in the head. The guy's doing so much fucking drugs. Yeah, it's unbelievable, and we've known that from a previous season of Darkside. But this pisses off fucking Too Cold Scorpio beyond belief, and he steals some fucking stainless steel chopsticks and starts turning them into a shiv. So instead of burying the hatchet, he wants to bury the shiv instead. You fucking bastard. Well, it wasn't gonna. Maybe my line would have been a bit better, but I wasn't able to say it better now because you fucking ruined it for me. It's funny that
I don't think it would have been buried if you would have like called it out. If you wouldn't have gotten so upset, I don't think anybody would have said anything about it.
Okay.
You would have been able to pull it off.
The point is, anyway, Benoit is actually trying to talk him up, but Benoit's Shapiro, Scorpio's I'm all over the place right now. Scorpio's roommate, and he's trying to talk him out of it. But
yeah, the irony of Chris Benoit talking somebody out of murdering someone.
Oh,
I don't want to go there. I really don't want to. But okay,
and that's the point where we get to monetize everybody.
But Too Cold Scorpio, he's on another thing now. Like I don't think he you talk about a stupid idiot. This is where this is the guy who's a stupid idiot. He really wants to kill this man, and he wants to do it in North Korea.
I mean, dude, the guy's a lunatic, and that almost that. I'm sorry, that reinforces what I said about the guy, and it shows that it's not even like I think that takes away head injuries, because you're not going to have head injuries, at that time. I would hope not, at least.
Well, the wrestlers now, they're driving towards the show, and they see thousands of people, going to the stadium, and Scott Norton and Bischoff are in the car, and they're quite impressed by this and thinking it'll be good numbers. And the driver then basically tells them they're going there by force, because if they don't, they get a bullet to the head. You've been forced to go watch a wrestling match. Oh my god.
I mean, that's about how you'd get me to a WWE event. So.
Me too.
Cheeto. You could get killed.
I shouldn't be laughing.
You get a 9mm to the face. Or you have to go see. I don't know who's main eventing Drew McIntyre. You got to go see Drew McIntyre.
I could watch Drew McIntyre. I thought it'd be something like I'd have to see Cena. Ooh, you'd really have to drag me to that one.
You've got to go to AEW, watch the Young Bucks versus Dark Order.
Watch Kenny Omega and Don Callis 69.
Watch any Kenny Omega match.
God.
So. But regardless, they're quite pumped. There's a massive turnout, even though these people are forced. It's like about 200,000 people in this bloody stadium. And all types of shit. You think it's the bloody Olympic opening ceremony, the way things are going on, man.
It is the biggest stadium in the world. Yeah.
And so they're pretty pumped, really excited to perform in front of all these people. And then they start wrestling, and these people don't know what the fuck they're watching. They've never been exposed to wrestling and shit. They're seeing these fucking behemoths throwing their bodies around and don't know what to make of it.
And
So-
one thing that wasn't necessarily clear to me, I wasn't watching that portion like particularly closely. Like, was the crowd like cheering? Were they completely silent?
They were
No,
silent.
they were silent.
They were
were
just,
silent
oh my
near
god,
the
that's
end.
just
They
gotta
didn't,
be.
they didn't know what they were watching.
They didn't know
Well,
what they
no,
were
I
watching,
knew
didn't
that
know
they
how to
didn't know what
react.
they were watching, but I also know that like sometimes in those environments, like they make them show like cards and stuff, and like they'll make them do like chants or like choreographed stuff. So I didn't know if they were like having them do that during it, but yeah, being completely silent, that's just gotta be. I mean, as we saw during the pandemic, that just completely changed the environment of the match,
Well,
obviously.
Japanese
Thank you,
crowds
mate.
are typically typically silent during matches unless it's like a really big spot, and
Okay.
it's considered
Okay.
respectful. Now with Korea, I think it was different because obviously North Korea bans pretty much all foreign versions of entertainment there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to them, watching pro wrestling is like us watching something like elephant polo.
Okay, I mean,
Although we might get some enjoyment out of it and start cheering after a couple of minutes. These guys have never seen pro wrestling; they don't know what it is. The only person who probably has seen pro wrestling at this point would be the likes of Kim Jong Il, because he, according to people who have escaped from North Korea, has stacks and stacks of things stored away like American action movies, comedies, and he probably has things like pro wrestling as well.
Now, I'm not sure many people know this, but not only the Americans very unpopular in North Korea, but so are the Japanese, because they actually took over that country, and it was only given back to them after the Second World War. They colonized it initially, and then it was given back to them after the Second World War. So the Japanese and the Americans are not loved at all. Obviously, the Korean War as well. So the Americans and the Japanese are not loved at all. But there is an exception for Inoki, because Inoki's mentor in Japan was a North Korean man who had to hide his identity until it was found out that he was North Korean, and then the Yakuza fucking killed him.
Now, I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Okay, please.
Okay, now that was oversimplified, and it actually was completely incorrect. Ricky Dozan was not killed for being North Korean. Yes, he was born in North Korea when it was occupied by Japan, yes, he kept that part of his life completely hidden, but he was not murdered for being North Korean. He got into an altercation in a bar with a member of the Yakuza. I don't know who instigated it, but one of them was mad at the other for supposedly stepping on their shoe and demanded an apology. The member of the Yakuza apparently had got into a fight with a pro wrestler the year before, and he got his ass handed to him. He knew how tough pro wrestlers were, so he was carrying a blade with him. It wasn't a switchblade like they were showing in Darkside of the Ring. It was a mountain blade about 6 inches long. He pulled that and he stabbed Ricky Dozan. Ricky Dozan didn't die instantly. He died a week later. What happened was he decided to go and seek treatment, and instead of going to a proper hospital, he went to one that specialized in gynecology because he knew one of the doctors there and thought he could get away with going there and not having it leak out to the press. He had the surgery. They said his wound was non-lethal. What happened was he got home and he started drinking heavily again. And when he started drinking heavily again, he developed peritonitis, and that's what he died of. This is why the member of the Yakuza that actually killed him and stabbed him didn't go to prison for murder. He spent 8 years in there purely for manslaughter. So
Interesting.
Ricky Dozan was not murdered for being North Korean. That was a complete utter fabrication.
Okay, fair enough. But regarding this, apparently because of but anyway, regardless of that, because Inoki had a good relationship with this person, he was pretty much seen as like a foreign hometown boy, so to speak, by the North Koreans. That's the only way I can really describe it.
Yeah, the North Koreans propagandized Ricky Dozan's death afterwards.
So yeah, because of his relationship with him, he had a good light in North Korea. He did go to North Korea quite often prior to this. So he's having the final match with Ric Flair, and I remember Eric Bischoff saying like they don't know what to make of Ric Flair. Here's this guy with long blonde hair, this giant bloody bathrobe with sequins on it and shit like that. Didn't know what to make of it, but then they started wrestling, and Norton mentioned they had an old school match, with storytelling, I guess, and all of that, and the crowd got into it, which was really nice. And then Scott Norton said something so bittersweet. It almost broke my heart. Like, these people are living in hell, are literally living hell. And then for 30 minutes, they had probably the only entertainment, proper entertainment, not forced entertainment, real entertainment in their lives, and that was it.
Well,
And
technically, it was forced entertainment. If you're made to show
I
up,
agree.
Yeah.
No, I sorry. Yeah, I'll take. I'll
It needs
take
like
that back.
enthralling, like genuine, pure.
You're
Yeah.
just like feeling some sort of like excitement for something. You're really watching it, you know, and it kind of I felt really sad by the fact that it was only half an hour of their lives, but you know they experienced, you know, a fascinating match. Scott Norton said it was the greatest match ever. I mean, those sort of things are your opinion, but I can understand it from so many perspectives. And I you know, it was nice to know that these people in North Korea got to experience something that we as ourselves have been spoiled upon for years. What do you guys think of that? I'll start with you, Shred.
Flair was probably the best choice if you were going to have the match with Inoki, because Flair could probably carry him to having a solid match. Hogan coming over would have been like the ultimate bad guy, especially if he came out to the theme American Made.
Oh my God.
The fans would have booed the shit out of him.
They wouldn't have allowed it. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, but
It'd have been the North Korean national anthem he came out to.
Yeah,
God, imagine Hacksaw Jim Duggan going out there going USA. They would have arrested his ass, man.
Flair out of the entire WCW roster was probably the best option to get the best match out of Antonio Inoki for that kind of crowd.
I agree. 100%. I was actually going to bring up
agree.
that point.
Yeah, I would agree. I do say that it's sad as far as obviously like them you know, like them being like genuinely happy, spontaneously like excited, all that kind of shit, and that's the only thing they get, you know, probably their entire lives. So that's obviously a depressing point. I don't know how much I value Scott Norton saying it was the greatest match in the, you know, of all time or whatever. But I mean, I can believe that Ric Flair would have a great match with Antonio Inoki, and obviously being watched and having the just the energy of 190,000 people. I mean, I can see where that would be a really good match.
If you can make people who've never seen wrestling before, don't even know what to make of it. If you can make them get something out of these people.
Yep.
There must be something good about that particular match, you know. Because usually by the end of a fucking pay-per-view, I'm just done. Like, get this shit over with, yeah. You know what I mean? And like these guys, they managed to get a little bit enthralled by it. But I also want to add, you know, Inoki, he's not as big as he looks, because he's got this long face, that long chin. It makes him look like a really, really tall guy. But when he locked up with Ric Flair, they looked very similar in height. So I was kind of surprised by that. But anyway, that's not too important. So onwards with the show. So back to Too Cold Scorpio. And
do we have to?
Yes. Now the wrestling show is over. I guess it was a success. You know, the fans were happy by the end. And before these guys go back to America, they're having their dinner. You know, ceremonial dinner. Sorry, Shed, you want to say something?
There was one more incident after the show, which Darkside of the Ring missed, and I know Ric Flair has spoken about, and a few others have spoken about as well. The North Koreans, before they let the guys leave, they wanted Ric Flair to give a statement where he would say that he understood why the United States was so afraid of North Korea and how much better North Korea's culture was.
Oh, now, good God.
Flair, he was a heel, but no, he wasn't going to denounce the United States of America, basically effectively commit treason. So what he did was instead he gave a speech where he gave his gratitude to the people of North Korea and to the great leader Kim Il-sung in particular. And that was how he got out of it. But if the DPRK had been really unhappy with him, the chances are that Flair, at the very least, might have never have left North Korea.
It sounds to me that was probably the greatest promo of Flair's fucking life.
Probably.
Probably the most important. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, probably the most important.
Okay, Bob, you got anything to say before we could move on regarding that final match?
Too Cold Scorpio is a fucking crazy fucker.
I'm going on to Too Cold Scorpio now. But, sorry.
I mean, no, but I agree with Shred. Is that Flair is that. Flair can get a good match, like back in his prime. Flair could get a good match out of anybody, and I mean, Flair carried a lot of people in his career. during the 90s and even the 80s. So I mean, I agree. Like if you would have put Hogan in that match, it just would have looked terrible. So Flair was definitely the best pick.
Again, psychology-wise, Hogan would have been the ultimate bad guy in North Korea, but if you wanted a solid match, Flair was the guy.
Like,
I mean,
we were talking about, you know, Kenny Omega. Look, if anybody needs to be wrestling blow-up dolls, I think Flair could do it.
Wasn't that the old saying? If Flair could get a good match out of a broom.
Exactly, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Well, so
ahead, Tim.
Regarding Too Cold Scorpio, they're about to have the ceremonial dinner. He bumps into Hawk, and they have their chat. And Too Cold is ready to shiv him, but Hawk's, you know, drugs have run out and stuff like that. He's more sober now, and he kind of gives a like sort of like an apology speech.
Was it not from? I didn't think it was from his drugs. I thought it was more from like they said he had hepatitis and he was recovering from that, so he just wasn't, you know, he wasn't well.
He was taking medication and stuff, and apparently that was what's making him act like an arsehole.
Yeah, well, Too Cold Scorpio is the one.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that it was making Hawk act like an asshole. I thought
even though Too Cold was the arsehole.
That's what I was getting at. I thought Too Cold was the asshole.
Even though Too Cold was the arsehole.
Yeah, but Too Cold is the one who said that he ran out of drugs and ran out of roids and everything like that. And so, I mean, he might. I mean, Too Cold might have been embellishing.
Once again, you know, unfortunately, Hawk is not with us to speak on his behalf, but Scott Norton did. And Scott Norton said that, you know, if, you know, because Scorpio was saying that he had Hawk down and he beat the fuck out of him initially, but Norton said that if Hawk wasn't on his shit, he would have fucking destroyed Too Cold Scorpio. And Hawk is a fucking badass, man.
I believe it. I believe
he became a train wreck, but he was a fucking badass.
He would have ate his lunch.
But if you remember, Hawk was on quite a lot of drugs at the time. I mean, he just left the WWF about 2 years prior because he hooked up with the Hells Angels and he'd been smoking crack like the night before SummerSlam.
Why was
he was fucked up like at SummerSlam.
Where was Animal in all of this?
Animal was
he injured? He must have been.
I'm trying to remember what the hell Animal was. I think Animal in 1995 was in a tag team in Japan somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I was about to say, this is when they split?
Yeah.
The Road Warriors had both split at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I recall. I remember that from watching the Darkside of the Road Warriors.
Road Warriors.
So now it's time to go back to America. And as they're leaving, they're worried about their passports not being returned to them because they got their passports and stuff. But, you know, everything kind of goes a bit more smoothly than they realized. You know, they get their passports back. They're on the plane. The mood is starting to change. And as soon as they land in Japan, I mean, it's not even their own country. The fact they're out of North Korea, just in a civilized fucking country. You know, they land in Japan and fucking Flair in his fucking $5,000 billion suit and shoes.
$5,000 shoe.
Fucking, kisses the ground, and you can see the relief in these guys. And this is why I found the episode funny, because I knew these guys had survived this, even though I had no idea about this until today. I had no idea this even existed, which is so great to know that this was even a thing. And to find out about it, it was like watching a really good historical documentary. And, you know, just the adventures these guys went on as a group, as a unit. It's a shame we didn't hear more from the Steiner brothers about this, you know, as well as some of the other Japanese wrestlers. Sonny Ono did speak about it a bit, which was interesting. You know, like I said, all these Japanese and American guys all together in the same fucking shit in a foreign land. It was nice to have an episode of Darkside which wasn't about the downfall of a wrestler. This was a great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Sonny Ono, I thought, was a good pick for this one. I don't think he's been in any of the other ones, so I thought that was a good inclusion.
Is he in the Hall of Fame in the WWE?
No, he's not.
I don't think
he deserves
so,
to be.
I would hope Sonny Ono is going to be brought in for a future episode of Dark Side of the Ring, in particular because I would like to see him addressing the racial discrimination issues that were present in WCW, because I know he's sued over that.
Yeah.
Now, one of the last lines Chris Jericho said in this episode when he was narrating was that the one thing wrestling in North Korea has in common is that they both blur the lines of fiction and reality, and that was very, very true. You know how deluded these motherfuckers are. It's scary. It's scary.
And just to go back a little bit, just to that last thing you were saying about how you didn't even know that this existed. I knew that this event existed. I didn't know much about it. I've seen like YouTube videos, like 10-minute things, summarizing it. I didn't really know a lot of it. This was the first program I had seen that covered it like that in depth. But I mean, I think that's something great, and that's something that really brings me back to wrestling, especially because I mean, as fans of wrestling, any fan of wrestling will tell you, you'll go in and out of it. I don't think I've ever met a person who's watched wrestling their entire life, always liked it the same amount, like always consistently every single week. Like people fall in and out of it, and that's one of the big things that gets me back into it, or just keeps me into it, is these stories, the people in it, these larger than life personas, these characters, and their real life adventures. I mean, like you were saying, I mean, it's like it's like watching a sitcom or something, but it's real life.
Yeah, I would love for this to be turned into a film. This would be brilliant to watch as a movie, or like a 4-part miniseries, one day for each time they're in the country.
No, I think that would be a great idea, because these reenactments of these scenarios and stuff, that would be really interesting. Yeah,
and maybe in 10, 15 years, or in season 15 of Darkside, they'll talk about the Saudi Arabia adventure.
I think they've tried to do that, but I don't think that they can either get enough. I think that they could do it clearance wise. I don't feel that they think that they have enough people that were involved with the event.
The wrestlers themselves, they would have had red carpet treatment whilst they were there for sure.
But being held up and
without a doubt, there were still pawns. There were still pawns, but they wouldn't have had this sort of like.
They wouldn't have been like in clandestine facilities. They would have been treated first class.
Like if Roman Reigns didn't tell anyone that he was going for a jog,
he wouldn't have had to fear that those people would have been killed. Yeah,
nothing would have happened. In my opinion, I don't know if you guys agree. I don't think going for a jog. If you.
I definitely feel like at that point. I feel at that point, like how tense those situations were. I feel like they would have got like reprimanded for it or something, but nothing to the extent.
Eric Bischoff going for a jog though was probably one of the funniest things.
That's just stupid. I'm sorry. Like I understand that it was
like Godzilla running down the road.
That's just stupid. Now that is a very funny, and I felt bad for him. That was one quote that also stood out to me. He's like, I don't want to terrorize anybody, especially children. And it's like, you got to feel really bad if you're like 25 years after you're saying it with that like tone and wording.
It goes to show to you like what propaganda can do to not a person, to a society, society, man. All these people, like millions of people, totally misled, put down a path, for the ego of just a handful of people. It's ridiculous.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's disgusting. So I believe I got it wrong last week by me saying that the following week was Ultimate Warrior. Is Ultimate Warrior next week?
Ultimate Warrior's next week.
I can't wait for that.
We'll be doing that Monday.
This was, for me, the most refreshing episode of Darkside I've seen. I've never seen anything like this. None of the episodes have ever been anything like this, where it's focused on the individuals going on a fucked up trip. I mean, it's always been about a person, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There was a clip in this that you could potentially have made a Darkside episode out of, and I spoke to you earlier about this, Sam. It was when they were showing the clips of WCW guys in Japan, and they showed the bump that ended Rick Rude's career.
Yeah, damn, I couldn't handle that, man. When I saw that, that was horrible. Knowing that
quite early on, when Sting was coming over the top rope for a dive, the ring is on a raised platform. Rude takes a bump on the edge of the platform, which screws up his back and ends his in-ring career.
So stupid, the design of that platform. Not to make it all flat. Ridiculous, man. To have levels like that. Of course, it's going to cause damage. Yeah. Okay, so it's been great talking to you, fellas. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been a great episode of Darkside Ring. I look forward to the next one. I hope to see you all guys for that. everyone, if you are not subscribed to NerdTube, please do. We talk about all manners of things from wrestling to superheroes to video games, and also a bit of football controversy too.
Pop quiz for you guys just before we go. How many buys do you think Collision in Korea managed to get when it aired on pay-per-view for WCW?
5.
5, man. I'll take
idea.
the over. I'll take the over on 5. Can I get a ballpark? Like, can I get a range?
Okay, it was under 100,000.
Oh, okay. All right. God bless.
Okay, I would say
You go.
4,200.
Ooh, okay. I'll go 37K.
You're very, very close, Jericho. It was 30,000 buys.
Okay, nice. Wow.
And to put that into perspective, WWE's, the pay-per-view that's considered the worst buy rate in their history, ECW's December to Dismember, that got 90,000 buys.
Yeah, but that was in 1995, though.
That was 1995, yeah. But again, they selected like 8 matches from the 2 days.
And do you think
they broadcast it on the pay-per-view 4 months after the actual event had taken place, and they got 30,000 buys, even with the first and only encounter between Flair and Inoki.
A question to Jericho and Cousin Cheeto. Do you think maybe back in 95, like when they realized that there was going to be a pay-per-view in North Korea, a lot of wrestling fans were going, fuck those goddamn commies. You know what I mean? I ain't watching that commie shit. You know what I mean?
I don't think so. I mean, you gotta remember, I wasn't alive during that time, but I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't personally think that.
I mean, I wouldn't have thought that way. I just would have.
No, I'm not saying you guys would, but do you think maybe people
He's saying
would...
generally, like as a consensus.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't have, so I don't think other people would, but I mean, I
can see it happening in certain sects, but I don't see it would happen like a lot, like persistently.
Okay, well, I was wrapping this up, so let's wrap this up. Shred, Cheeto, Jericho has been fantastic. We'll be doing more stuff. We'll be coming out soon on NerdTube. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that bullshit. Thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.
All that bullshit. Bye-bye.